What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to White Sox Daily once again. Beautiful Tuesday morning as the Chicago White Sox. A bit more news today than there has been as of recently, so we'll go ahead and jump right on into it as we start things off with some news regarding the New York Yankees and how it potentially pertains to the South Side, as the Yankees and Cody Bellinger, as reported by Yahoo, still unable to come to any sort of agreement to bring back the outfielder that had a pretty solid season for New York last year. Of course, hitting in a very hitter-friendly ballpark, as we all know, but still a .272 batting average, and he hit 29 home runs as well as 98 RBIs last year for the Yankees. He was also phenomenal defensively for the Yankees all season long. Right now, the Yankees' top priority, as they have mentioned numerous times when interviewed about it, is to re-sign Cody Bellinger this offseason. However, current reports state that as they have offered him a 5-year contract worth $155 million, Bellinger has declined that to this point, saying he is steadfast. He is looking for a deal of at least 7 years to tie him to the club for potentially the remainder of his career. That is what he wants. He's 30 years old at the moment, and he really wants some stability in his next contract to kind of make sure that he can, finish out his career, not worrying about another contract negotiation, probably until the finish of that storied career for Bellinger. And the Yankees right now, for whatever reason, that's the tie-up, 5 years, 7 years, whatever. It's a toss-up here. But the thing that has now come out as a report involving that is that the New York Yankees' current pivot plan, should they not be able to sign Cody Bellinger in a timely manner, is to check in on the Luis Robert trade market, which is very interesting because we've already heard rumblings of the Cincinnati Reds have checked in. They got told, no, the deals they were offering, absolutely not. The White Sox are looking for a big-time haul to move Luis Robert. It looks like the New York Mets have checked in, the San Diego Padres have checked in, and all three of these teams have been offering trades based on the stats that Luis Robert has been putting out as of recently. Had a couple of down years. They are making offers to the White Sox based on what Luis Robert has been the last 2 seasons. The White Sox are clearly still absolutely determined that they still like his upside. They still like his talent and potential. They won't trade him for anything less than what his potential is. They are still treating him like a top-end prospect that he once was when they brought him to the Chicago White Sox. And the Yankees pose an interesting potential shift in that they might be willing to do something like that. They are a team that obviously is at no shortage of, first of all, cash flow, and second of all, a really solid farm system there in New York. They are a team that can replenish and reload like that. Drop of a hat, they can get what they want most times. And so they might not be as concerned about the White Sox high demands if they just really need to get something done to bring a quality outfielder back if they lose Bellinger, which means I could potentially see the Yankees as the most likely trade candidate should the White Sox end up exploring a preseason trade. I still think the most likely outcome is that Luis Robert stays put, at least as far as the season begins. But if they are to make a trade, I do think the New York Yankees would be the most likely outcome of the teams that have currently checked in on the Chicago White Sox and whether or not they would want to trade Luis Robert at this time. And then some more White Sox news here as we continue to look through it. International Signing Day just around the corner. The White Sox currently in a verbal agreement come this Thursday with 12 international signings. 2 of the big ones to keep an eye out for. Once again, we've got another high-end catcher that we're potentially adding to the farm system. It would appear that all 12 of these prospects from the international signing period are verbally agreed to at this time. It is fully expected all 12 of them will be officially signed the moment they are available to do so come Thursday. including catcher Fernando Graterol out of Venezuela. He is from Valencia, which has produced some other big-time major league names. Salvador Perez is from there, Wilson Ramos, Francisco Cervelli. Yeah, he's a 17-year-old catcher, 6'1", 175 pounds. Obviously 175 doesn't scream monster, big power guy, until you remember that he's a 17-year-old, and usually around that age, you're not really grown into your full build just yet. Go to any high school wrestling meet, and you can pretty quickly determine that some of these guys that look like they're 225 pounds end up being like 152. It's just kind of how it works at that age. So a guy that is projected to really grow into, his frame, a big power hitter with tremendous arm talent behind the plate, picking off runners, a guy that is highly regarded as far as Venezuelan talent goes in this period, gives the Chicago White Sox another high-quality catcher to their farm system. They are really developing a bit of a logjam at that position, which we talked about yesterday, could give them some flexibility as far as what you're going to do potentially with, say, a Corey Lee going forward, and if you can get anything in return for him. They are also expected to sign Dominican right-handed pitcher Roderick Ramirez. He had originally agreed to a deal with the San Diego Padres, but he has flipped to the Chicago White Sox as of November. It is expected that now that should be pretty much finalized. Hopefully no last-second flips once again. He's a guy that possesses a lot of the tools that we are very familiar with here in Chicago. A lot of us, you watch Chicago White Sox baseball, you've seen some of our previous top-end talent that kind of became that ace for a short period before we inevitably end up trading said ace. But his top three pitchers, high 90s mile per hour fastball. It is believed that, he's just 17 now, that he should be able to grow into 100 mile per hour plus on that fastball. And he usually includes secondary pitches as far as what he brings to the table with those secondary pitches, primarily slider and changeup. These are three pitches that White Sox fans have gotten very accustomed to over the years, with Giolito, Dylan Cease, hopefully Grant Taylor here in these upcoming years. So hopefully a couple of big names here for the Chicago White Sox that they work out, especially, from Ramirez, who the White Sox still in desperate need to continue filling up their farm system with as many talented pitching options as they can get, because you never know when we're going to have to maybe speed run some of these guys up to the major league roster at this point. They are just so depleted at that position up on the actual White Sox major league level that there's kind of a worry that might be a bit of a minor league raid going on sooner rather than later. Hopefully not. Hopefully they can give all of these guys, Noah Schultz, the whole gang, ample time, as much time as it takes for them to properly develop, and they don't end up in a desperation type of situation. You wouldn't think so with them being still in the midst of this rebuild, but you never know. And another one of the potential trade options that could become available that we are now learning about is the Philadelphia Phillies are in hot pursuit of shortstop Bo Bichette. That is no surprise. We know the Phillies have been intrigued by Bichette from the very beginning. But what is coming of it now is that we have learned from some Philadelphia insiders that the big holdup at the moment is with the amount of cash, just the sheer monetary value of that contract, and that they are looking to dump salary before they are willing to increase their offers to Bichette right now. One of the big ones they're trying to get rid of, Nick Castellanos, $20 million per year at the moment. He's a guy that a lot of teams are not going to be interested in taking on that full contract, but the Phillies might be willing to pay some of it or even a good chunk of it just to kind of dump some of that contract to get some money for a guy like Bichette when they know that they don't really have a roster spot for Castellanos in the everyday sense in their lineup. But the White Sox could definitely use some help. He's an outfielder. He's a guy that still brings some power to the table, Nick Castellanos, especially if there's some sort of major world event going on, or some sort of somber moment in the broadcast booth, then he's, Babe Ruth. But all joking aside, a guy that would certainly be able to replicate some of those power numbers, give you some much needed power in a position of desperate need. You need an outfielder, you need a home run hitter. Nick Castellanos, you might be able to get him for half of what his current contract owes, and you might get some prospects back from the Philadelphia Phillies at this point, just based on how much money you're willing to spend on Castellanos. If you're willing to take a good chunk of that contract off their hands, they might even be a little bit more generous with adding some young players to the trade as well. So something to definitely keep your eyes on. Let us know how you'd feel about that in the comment section below. And we'll wrap things up with a bit of a fun story here, as the Illinois Department of Transportation recently released their current registration numbers by license plate for vanity plates and specialized decals on license plates registered to vehicles in the state of Illinois. And the Chicago White Sox led all sporting teams and school, so any university, any high school memorabilia license plate sales as far as registered cars in the state of Illinois. Over 36,000. They came up just 88 short of 37,000. Second place was actually the Chicago Blackhawks, interestingly enough, with about 16,500 registered plates. The Chicago Cubs and Chicago Bears, the only other two over 10,000. Then it's just a whole heaping mess of various colleges throughout the state of Illinois, the University of Illinois, Notre Dame, that's not even an in-state university, Loyola, Illinois State, Eastern Illinois, Western Illinois, DePaul, Northern Illinois. You get the idea. But yeah, the Chicago White Sox, the most represented vanity license plate, specialized decal as far as license plate through the state of Illinois. So I thought that was fairly interesting. White Sox fans, of course, deeply passionate fan base in the state and representing out there on the highways of the state of Illinois. So solid work, White Sox fans, always showing out. That'll do it for today's news. This has been White Sox Daily. I've been Aaron Feely. We'll see you guys again tomorrow.